This is the podcast that turns the health and wellness industry upside down so you can be your healthiest self inside and out. I'm Dr. Neal Smoller, holistic pharmacist, supplement expert, former big mouth, recent bearer of the Captain COVID shield. Every time I say that, like I'm Captain COVID, I like maybe I should say I'm Captain COVID Buster because I feel like otherwise it sounds like I've just given everybody COVID.
It does sound that way.
Like I'm the most infectious person and I have like a star on my chest and
you are one of the most infectious people I've ever met in that you make people physically ill when they're around you. So that does make sense. That does add up.
We are here. I'm going to just stop you there. We're here for a brand new edition of the podcast, which Dr. Dre would refer to as the next episode. And that's what this is, episode 1, the next episode. We are going to ring in this new era of our lives. I say that not too lightly. I definitely feel like COVID is a before and after point for a lot of people, me included. I know we're in this post-COVID world, right, Mark?
Post-COVID, baby. It's over. Nobody wants to hear about COVID anymore. It's monkeypox season, baby. COVID's over.
We have lots of people coming to ask us about monkeypox, and I say to them, it's not real, it's fake. It's fake news, and there is no monkeypox. I do think that anybody that is 18 or above, if we told them that they had to do stuff for a pandemic, they would just not do it.
They're not going to do the things. I mean, polio's back. Did you see Rockland County has polio in the water? People have polio now, Neal. Where was that? I thought we got a vaccine for that.
No.
Fake news. There's no vaccine,
apparently. I mean, it's all about big pharma anyway.
Oh, my God. It's terrible.
I guess we could say that this new era here, this post-COVID world where we're wrestling while these intense concepts will be ushered in with this podcast, The Wellness Upside Down. If you're a big mouth pharmacist listener, which was like millions of people, right? You're going to notice some changes. First being that I'm sitting here talking to another male, not Dana, the producer, who's off to my right and off mic today. She has a mask on, not for COVID, but because Mark has the hottest breath ever, and she's just got mint, like
just disgusting.
She's got a bushel of mint in her.
My coffee breath is atrocious right now.
Right,
I'm like a plague doctor.
It's like quick
she's
check
got Posey in there.
Oh, it's gross.
I think that I smell dry socket. Is that what that is?
That's what that is. Yes.
Okay, it's interesting. Did you have your wisdom teeth removed?
Face rot is what it is. My face is just rotting off of itself. Yep.
Is that one of the side effects?
It is.
Anyway, so Mark DeCicco, RTD Fitness, you are here because you are a fitness guru.
I am.
And you are a former obese person, right?
Former morbidly obese person. I started my weight loss journey at 420 pounds. We'll talk about how I lost over 200 pounds in the process of how I did that. A lot of information there to share, but just generally speaking, this is an exciting time for us to get into this functional medicine stuff that you're really big on and your ability to really focus in on the total person. And I think that's what really appealed to me about this because I come from a place where I'm trying to help people who are hesitant or not interested in fitness or working out. And I'm trying to introduce the idea of just how easy and accessible fitness can be for everyone using body weight exercises in the same way you're trying to demystify and make it easier to access people's wellness, routines and how they decide on their wellness path.
It is funny. It's like a very similar theme that not only is it should be made easy and accessible. And there's been plenty of people that have tried to do that, and everybody kind of knows what to do, right? Yep. So somebody comes to me and they say, how do I eat? I'm like, how to eat. It's really just about the challenging portion of it is our behavioral stuff, right? And getting through all of that. And
when people come to me and they're like, so how do you eat? And it's like, you have to eat for your own body. I've had to eat differently along this path.
Right.
And so there were times where I'd eat differently depending on where my body was. But all of that is dependent upon how that person has a relationship with food, how they're utilizing food.
Right.
Just the flipping the switch to saying food is fuel is a complete change. And so if you're using food as a reward mechanism or as a way to feel better, that is effective and it has consequences.
Right.
And so, being honest about that, taking inventory of where you're actually at and what you're actually putting in your body, and all of those pieces are huge.
Yeah.
And so it's the honesty piece around sort of where you're at. And so people come to me and they're like, how do you eat? It's like, it doesn't matter how I eat.
Right.
You got to eat the way, and it's same coming to you. Like, what pills do you take, Neal? Well, it doesn't matter what pills Neal takes. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of drugs he's on.
Yeah.
He's a whack job, but what, when you come to me and you ask me, I honestly think people, when they come to me and they ask me, like, how do you eat? I think what they're trying to do is find holes in how I approach it. And I think people do a similar thing potentially with you, and you can speak to it. But they come to you to kind of like find how it's not going to work for them rather than how it will. And I think that's a lot of what I'm up against, which is like, well, you had weight loss surgery, or you eat differently than me, or I can't eat like you eat, or I can't drink water the way you do. It's like, you could, you just don't want to.
Right.
And that's okay. Just be honest. Just say, listen, this doesn't work for me. All right. But don't get mad at how I did it and tell me I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
That's not going to work. And so.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to somebody achieving their wellness goals.
Totally.
I think we both understand that, you as somebody going through it and now helping other people, and me as a practitioner of like now almost 15, 16 years, doing this health and wellness stuff and trying to treat people holistically. So we have a lot to kind of unpack about what we're going to do with the podcast. But first and foremost, again, there are people that are coming over from the old podcast to the new one. So I want to just kind of segue that in. So again, you're the co-host. You have a really great voice to lend to this. What I've been trying to do is to try to help people, I guess like de-prescribe is the word that we've been using. So use fewer medications. And the answer always was, well, use more supplements. But my point moving forward is that we need to be strategic about all of it. So we need to use fewer, more effective medications, fewer, more effective supplements. And we need to make sure that we touch on the lifestyle domains, the nutrition, the sleep, the stress, the physical fitness, the mental well-being, the exosome, all of that stuff needs to be managed. And that's where you're going to come in, because you can help out. Like off the top of my head, what we got? Nutrition, we got fitness, and as you were just saying, the mental side of this whole process. You've got lots of experience,
I've had
with
a lot
psychology
of
too, right?
Just failing. And so like part of it too is like I failed at this for years. I was not just 420 pounds overnight. Like I lost 100 pounds a couple times and found ways to gain all of it and then some back. And so I've succeeded in quotes now, but I haven't always. And so I know the pitfalls. I know where I've struggled, and to be able to speak to myself back then and say, hey, bud, here's what you could have done. Now, like you said, it's not an information gap. And I think that's the part that, like, if people are tuning in and they're going, well, what these two average white dudes are saying is
middle aged,
it is like not that exciting. And it's like, we're not going to blow your mind with these concepts. These aren't, but you've got a supplement guy in front of you telling you to use less supplements. You've got a guy who's big into fitness telling you that it's accessible for you. Right. These are new messages. These are messages that you don't get in the mainstream. And so for me, I think people, it's just like, well, figure it out, or just go to the gym or whatever. Like people would say to me all the time, like, well, you were an athlete in high school, so just go do the things you did. And it's like, bro, I know what to do, right? But I didn't have, at 420 pounds, I can't do the things I want to do.
We were talking about one time before about how, a pharmacist, there's data that says that if you just say to somebody who's smoking, I think you should quit, that on a repetitive basis will actually help people quit. And so the same thing could probably be said for nutritional stuff. I think that we need to work on your nutrition. I think weight loss is something that's important to you. And so it was funny because I said that to you and a buddy, right? And you were like, I know I'm fat.
Yeah, it's not news, bro.
Yeah.
And you said it like it was like a revelation, like, hey, like you're really fat and it's probably not safe. It's like, duh, I walk around in this body, right? Like like no one knows and is acutely more aware than I am of my size. And so
how do we bridge the gap between the awareness of wanting to be healthier people, whether we're trying to tackle a disease or a severe nutritional problem, morbid obesity, or we just want to be healthier and we want to get more streamlined and make sure that we're using our resources correctly. And that's what we're going to do. So Mark is here. He's going to be a great insight into that for you guys. The other thing, it's not an audio only podcast. If you stumbled upon us for the first time and you're watching the video, you shouldn't be surprised because you're watching a video, but you can go and you can watch a video. Mark and I are both being recorded right now in our nice new studio that we got. I'm fixing my hair because I had a mask on and it's just a hot mess.
Lots of hair problems.
And so it's not an audio only podcast. You can see us wherever we end up putting it, probably YouTube or the website, wellnessupsidedown.com. And you can check that out. As I said, we are newly middle aged. I'm 42 this year. I think you just turned 42.
I turned 42 in January.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy to kind of look at the downward spiral. Oof. But is it really downward, Mark?
It's downward dog because I do yoga, and so that's part of, for me. I am in better shape at 42 than I was at 22, and so part of that is this commitment I've made recently to my health and wellness. And so I hit a wall at 40, and I can give you the picture of me at my 40th birthday at 420 plus pounds. But I was uncomfortable. I didn't feel like I was trapped in my body is how I felt. And so to go from that to where I am now, the freedom that allows for me
middle age.
At middle age, I didn't do it at 20. Like I could have.
One lesson that I tell people, one thing that you'll hear a bunch when we're having conversations around health and wellness is that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or today. And so there is no wrong time. I just saw a picture, maybe I can have Dana add it to the podcast, and it had a 40-year-old triathlete, 70-year-old triathlete, and it had a 70-year-old non-exercising person, and it was a MRI, like the dissection of their leg muscle. And the 40-year-old and the 70-year-old had the same exact anatomy. Like both had the big, beautiful muscles, and the 70-year-old looked kind of like, I don't know, like almost like an eyeball.
Yeah.
You know, when like you shine a light, it's like very little dot in the middle for muscle, all fat and nothing there. And so that 70-year-old triathlete is as healthy from a muscular standpoint as a 40-year-old. And so there is never a bad time to get started in this whole thing. And the messaging that you'll hear from us is hopefully that despite your age, you can still cover a lot of ground and change your life.
And you don't have to be an ultra marathoner or a triathlete to be an athlete.
No, it's just quite the opposite.
Yeah. And I think for me, like one of the things I've learned is I'd go hard and I'd do a lot and I'd put extra and I'd burn and I do the things. Right now, currently, I'm doing a lot of stretching, and I believe strongly in the science of stretching because flexibility is the key, from my perspective, to longevity.
Right.
Flexibility is the difference between being able to bend over, squat down, range of motion.
Yeah.
Huge. And so all the gluteal muscles, all the studies around sort of how your body needs those things as you get older and you don't use them. So important. And so we'll get into that a lot.
I guess what you're saying is that we're not going to have big expectations for people. We're going to try to make this accessible for everybody, focusing on some very simple things that they can do. So the other thing that's a big update here, besides us being old and working together on this, is that we're going to have some commercials, but predominantly we're going to have two commercials, one for me and one for you. And when we do this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people achieve their goals. We're giving lots of great information here that's totally accessible. Anybody can grab it. And hopefully, if we do it right, you won't need anything else. You can just listen to what we're saying and you can do it yourself. But if you need extra help, then I have two good people that can help you out in your journey. So we're going to be talking about how we can get through the misinformation, the hype, the fads, and the pseudoscientific nonsense and actually achieve those goals. So you'll hear commercials from us and then maybe MeUndies and stuff like that when we get really big.
When you get huge, right?
Yeah, of course. So the third thing, this is cool. This is actually going to be my favorite part of this is off the record. You know how like people think that they have an important opinion about things and they just get on a microphone and start recording and make it a podcast.
So true.
And so we're going to do that, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So like I feel like we have horrible middling opinions on things.
Yes.
And people might think that we're entertaining, so we should talk about those
Agreed.
things. So we're going to make a special podcast called Off the Record. And that podcast is going to be talking about things that are kind of related to the goal of Wellness Upside Down, but not really. So the first episode is called Neal Got His Hair Did, which is a story that chronicles the journey of my hair transplant. Now, if you're looking at a video, you're like, wow, those flocks of blonde, gorgeous hair. You look like Chris Hemsworth.
That's
like
what everyone is thinking.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking.
Real Thor live action here going on.
And so how that horrible, unique, wonderful story comes together is shared on Off the Record. So that's the first one. And then, like Mark goes to Disney World. I don't like anything. I went and it was horrible. So we're going to kind of talk about those silly things. So we have lots of interesting topics. I've got a COVID postmortem that we're going to do. There's a lot that's happened since the 100th episode of the Big Mouth Pharmacist, and I want to kind of get you caught up on being a dad. I have triplets and an extra kid, and Mark's got one kid, so we're going to kind of talk about all that. So It's going to be really interesting. You'll have access to all of the special stuff if you subscribe to Off the Record. So subscription only, completely separate podcast. You will get those episodes, all of these episodes, and some other special behind the scenes kind of stuff. And
I'll come by your house. I'll teach you how to stretch. Listen, we're going to make this fun. And the part of this that is exciting for me is, I've known you for a really long time. Neal and I go back a number of years to when we were kids. And, we're just really fun and entertaining. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that just because I'm me, but people have reflected back. Wow, you and Neal are jerks, but you're hilarious.
Yeah.
And so
horrible personalities,
just the worst people, but you are very funny. And so I think for us, it's going to be important for us to bring that entertainment value as well, which is why the Off the Record exists, because we can't do this straight up. We're just not built that way. He and I are too, I almost got us thrown out of here for making jokes earlier. And so it's not.
We almost didn't have a studio.
We almost didn't even have a studio because I can't stop my mouth. And so Neal, if you've met him, you might know that he named his podcast Big Mouth Podcast because he's, a gigantic mouth. And so he and I share that set of skills. And so this is a really unique opportunity for us.
It's a particular set of skills.
We got a particular set of skills. We can't help you if your child's abducted and you got to go find her in Europe. That's not a set of skills we have. But talking and wellness.
Can I interject an off-the-record thing that I want to say?
Yeah.
That we just went on a European vacation. We're going to talk about that on Off the Record.
Yep.
But I showed my kids the Family Guy where Meg goes to France and gets abducted, and it does the whole Taken plot line, and it was so funny. One of the lines that they thought was so funny because they were learning French words was "I chateaued myself." So we said that like 40 times when we were in Europe. But we'll talk about
That's pretty
my European vacation elsewhere.
The kids, Big Ben.
So I'm excited to have everybody back for this. I actually let me take that again. I want to keep it all in there. I really want you to understand how excited I am to do this. I've missed this dearly. Having Mark here to help out with this is going to be awesome. I get asked a lot of questions what supplements should I take? How do I get healthy if I'm a pregnant woman or a senior citizen? And, how do I lose weight? And all of these questions that need to be answered in a manner that's more accessible and more relatable. We need to have a strategy to our wellness endeavors. We need to stop listening to just everything that's out in the ether, and we need to have a mechanism to I'm going to say it, quiet the riot of misinformation. I say that because one of my patients wrote a testimonial, and that's what she said that I'm known for. And I thought that was the greatest catchphrase ever, quieting the riot. It's almost as good as the new one that somebody gave me is Neal brings the pharmacist brain to the supplement game. What do you think of that one?
That rings nice.
It rhymes.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's accurate. The thing is, and we've had these conversations in private, is, you aren't somebody who's going to give someone a medicine when it doesn't make sense for them. And so I think there's a lot of charlatans or people who are peddling in this industry who are, the Dr. Oz's of the world, who are going to come out and say this is a miracle cure. There's no such thing. And so there's no pill, there's no cure. There's ways in which you can approach these issues, but all of it is much more accessible than you realize. And I think that's the part for me. I think a lot of this is scary. I think going to Neal and saying, hey, I want to lose a bunch of weight, is a scary thing to say.
Right. I'm an ugly guy.
And what is Neal going to do, right? He's going to say, well, you should probably eat better, drink some water, get some sleep and exercise. Okay, where do I start, right?
Right.
Everybody knows that, and we've said that, right? Everybody knows that's what you're supposed to do, but how do I actualize that? And so we're going to go into real concrete things, things I actually do. I go to bed around 8 o'clock every night. That's an unreasonable thing to do.
It is so
it's
unreasonable.
Insane.
You are a horrible person.
Terrible. And people get mad at me. They're literally, they'll yell at me, how do you go to bed so early? When do you Netflix? It's bro, I have to go to bed early because I'm up early doing my workouts, getting my nutrition right, and setting my plan for the day. That's been very successful for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for everyone. So for me to say to Neal, hey, Neal, go to bed at 8 o'clock, his mind's racing. He's a lunatic and he's up. So he's not going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. It doesn't work for him. It has to work for you. So when people ask me what I do, it doesn't really matter, honestly, in some ways. In some ways, I have very specific things I can tell you about stretching, about yoga, about body weight exercises that will legitimately change your life. That's true. But if you don't take the time to carve out to do that, you're not ever going to get the benefit. And that's the piece. So if you don't have a plan for how you're going to do these things, you will not do them.
Right.
And that's, that's just honest. And that's what we're here to do. Cut through the nonsense, cut through the noise, as you said, that riot in the streets. We're not looking to be, set the world on fire here. We're looking to calm all that down and give you practical tips and practical ways to meet your needs.
And there's a couple of different things I'd say. Like we're going to do some special segments on the podcast. So I've got 3 that I'm going to focus on a bunch. First and foremost is as seen on Reddit. I spend too much time on Reddit. It's a part of my mental well-being challenge that I have to address very soon.
It's not good.
I just spend way too much time on it. But there is a nutrition and a supplement subreddit that is rife with misinformation and kind of speaks to a lot of what we've been talking about here. So I'm going to bring that up. The second thing, listener questions. And I want you to know that you can ask us questions. I'd prefer them via email. Let's say yo, at wellnessupsidedown.com, and that it will be how you can do that. Because I don't want people to try to spell Neal because they'll
spell it with an I. There's no chance. They're not going to put the A in there.
And the last thing I'm going to do is scenes from the apothecary. The drugstore is where we practice. It's in Woodstock, New York. We say it's where aging hippies get their drugs. And
it's hilarious. True.
We have a lot of case studies, a lot of people asking the same questions that people all across the country are going to be asking. So we're going to use that as a mechanism to kind of open up the discussion here on the podcast. We're going to keep it nice and, anonymous, of course. But if something happens at the drugstore that I think we need to talk about, I'm going to bring it up here and we're going to talk about it. So I think we've clearly laid out our first little ditty here on what we're going to do for the podcast. And so that's it for episode 1. And
you guys survived. You made it.
We got to the end, and I think we're probably canceled. So it's been an incredible journey, Mark. Thanks
for coming. What a ride. I thought I would get us canceled the first second I opened my mouth, which is actually almost what happened here when we started with the guy who owns the place. So the fact that we've made it one episode, what a win.
Yeah.
I mean, just very exciting.
Right to the end. So I appreciate that we were able to regroup and get through this here today. So please, please, please continue to tune in, subscribe to this podcast, tell your friends about the podcast, make this viral, as the kids say, wellnessupsidedown.com. And then, that's it. I'm Dr. Neal Smoller for Mark DeCicco, Dana, our producer. And until next time, be well.